My name's Rebecca Smith. I am a Detective Chief Inspector with Lancashire Constabulary. Currently, I have responsibility for the Force Serious Crime Team, responsible for serious and organised crime, and also the Online Child Abuse Investigation Team. So I have two completely different departments. So the first, OCATE, which is our Online Child Abuse Investigation Team. On the other hand, the Serious Crime Team oversees the force response to the investigation of serious organised crime. So this is a covert department of highly specialised officers with a variety of different specialisms. For example, digital media investigators, we have analysts, and we have a huge team of officers, not a huge team, but a team of officers that are surveillance trained. So on a day-to-day basis, they deal with a variety of different offences, but are absolutely the high end of serious crime across the force. So I've worked in the police now for 26 years, and I've been a detective for the last 20 years. I've worked in a variety of departments, whether that be the mainstream CID offices, where the day-to-day business that you're dealing with is reactive, so you're reacting to the calls from the public and dealing with incidents such as rapes, serious offences, burglaries and robberies. I've also worked on the Force Major Investigation Team, where you investigate homicides. But my passion really is for the area that I am in at the moment, which is covert policing. This is a specialist area which enables you to gain knowledge and experience of some really high-end tactics that aren't visible to the eye, that the public wouldn't see. It all happens in secret, if you will. And we get some really good opportunities to go on training courses and get experience that you wouldn't ordinarily get. It's a real challenge to gather evidence in relation to these serious offences, and there's no better satisfaction of investigating those really high-end criminals that can be perceived to escape justice. And by putting together, the teams working all sorts of different tactics, you do get some real good satisfaction from the significant sentences that these type of criminals that are operating at the absolute high end of our society eventually get when they are taken to justice and sentenced at court.
Hello all, and welcome back to Mind Juice. Wow. It feels so sweet to be back with the Mind Juice family. I miss you all. I hope everyone is grand and that this, coming together, reconvening, once again, finds you well. Let's get into it. First off, I have not gone anywhere, changed my theory, backed down, and or wavered in my persistence toward Nicola's truth, one iota. To those of you whom have sent me messages expressing concern, thank you, sincerely. Sure, I may have been absent longer than typical. I think it's a little over 2 weeks now. But don't let that fool you. This is real stuff. Sometimes it takes a little time to ensure focus is not lost or misdirected away from the actual truth. I'll explain more as we go along here today. Just know I have remained deeply engaged, continuing to study, research, and dig. And boy, oh boy, do I have some juice for you here today. Buckle up. Now, briefly, a chief reason I waited a little while longer to check in was due to myself awaiting to hear back from a close source from over there across the pond to give me confirmation on a particular line of intuition I have developed over the recent approximate month. I won't get all the way into it, although I know most want me to explain detail by detail. I 100% get that, but I can't. I do have to hold some of the cards, so to say, for my own welfare. Please understand. Someday, once the veil is raised, I will be more than happy to share. So, to those involved in the official games and narrative spinning, tuning in right now, listening to this, because I know you are, yes you, although you may not be aware I am on to you or perceive that I even realize now who you are or affiliated with. Hello and welcome back. Just so you know, all the attempts to misdirect, guide, befriend, etc. have missed. I understand the approach, the power of the 23 schematics, confirmation bias ops, the Sherlockness, shall I say. No contest here. Trying to smear my outlook and perspective with nonsense will only boomerang. To the other 99% of you listening, Mind Juice faithful, do know I hold strong. Let's march. One thing I can tell you, be careful whom you trust in the social media digital world, especially surrounding this case. I can assert, assuredly now, beyond all doubt, there are YouTube creators, one I know for absolute certainty, subjects planted, enmeshed within this platform, intentionally, projecting to solely be another creator and or one of those innocent subscribers or commenters that are in fact involved and a part of the official narrative. No, people, I have not gone crazy or developed some obscene paranoia. Trust me. There is a lot of directed, intentional, narrative smearing involved in this case, some of which have directly attempted to gloss me over, like I've reiterated. Overall, there's been a lot of this since day one. Narrative spinning is the underlying thesis to the working hypothesis, and the most recent developments are no different. Dr. Shepard and his remarks are more of the same, setting the stage with a sheepish narrative. I hope everyone can see how out of bounds it is for a retired home office pathologist to comment as he has, remarking and offering up an investigative detective-rooted line of inquiry amidst a case widely known to currently be in inquest processes. Such is an egregious breach of the profession he represents, its ethics, the oath, and overall scope of practice. So, let's get this straight. You have Faulding, who clearly did nothing wrong. Oh, let's remember, he is the owner and founder of SGI. That's where this is different and doesn't work for the government company or corporate motivated entity. Faulding, who clearly did nothing wrong, he simply spoke out honestly upon the expertise by which he was there exhibiting, genuinely working within the scope of his career and work, yet annexed from the expert list. Yet, just to name the latest, since we're talking about it, you have some retired home office pathologist who can seemingly on its face breach ethical boundaries and reasonable scope of practice, yet nothing will be done. In fact, watch, as soon as I read it, he'll be the one whom projected the finding of the missing piece. Come on now, people. His title, letters before and after his name, his resume, are superficial credibility, setting the stage for the revised working hypothesis. Yes, everyone, it's still the River Wire, always has been. However, now they are going to justify finding something to only then assert she had to have floated or come right through this way here because we found her Fitbit or her necklace or... Remember, it's coming from the coroner's request, so through plausible deduction, which they don't always follow, it's going to have to be something that relates to cause of death or physiology or explanations for the state of her body. Right? So you think Fitbit because it reads, body temperature, heart rate. You could say hearing aid, which she didn't have those, or like a cap from a tooth, or you get the point. It's going to be something, if they are searching for something, which I don't think they are, and I'll get into that later, it has to be something related to the process. Because it is the coroner's request, right? It can't be a criminal request because it wouldn't come from the coroner. Again, that would breach ethical boundaries. The whole thing's rubbish. Mark my words, Mind Juice. My locked and loaded response is, how can you find a needle in a haystack? Some small item, such as a Fitbit, in the mile and a half stretch of water. Yet for 22 days, despite experts, drones, dogs can't find an adult human body in the same water, which you also projected would be there. You can't expect people to buy the Lancashire police to find a missing artifact when they couldn't find a human body with a large wintry coat now, could you? Like I predicted in the beginning, watch, Nicola will be put into the river after the search has shifted. Sure enough, there she was. Just wait. I suppose it takes a psychic to find a body, yet a Fitbit or a necklace. Of course, that is something the Lancashire police can find, absolutely. In what world? How does that make sense? Like I said, we'll get into that as we go. But first, for starters, let me discuss Becky as I will do in abundance throughout this episode. As you just witnessed and heard throughout the intro piece was clearly Becky Smith, the known SIO in the Nicola Bulley case, speaking as a recruiter. The video and content you watched in the beginning was a video sourced from the Lancashire Police Facebook page back in 2020, wherein it was recruiting individuals, with the post described here, as you can see, representing the last few days individuals interested were able to apply for the detective entry program, #detectives. Hence, this is why Becky is detailing her specific roles, her passions, etc., right? To try to inspire or, recruit. You get the idea. Like I said, it's date back to 2020. It's still active and up now. Probably not for long now that I decided to share it. They don't seem to be a fan of my perspectives too much, but hey, that's cool. I would suggest that if they were being authentic, maybe I would be nothing but a great assistance, but it's whatever. Becky Smith, yes. I realize this video is a recruitment piece that is outside the context and scope of the case we are talking about here today. However, in regards to Nicola Bulley specifically, I do find aspects of what Becky says and reveals nonchalantly is and do have merit still today. Why? Because it is a biographical outlook given by herself, Becky, expressing her personal passions, areas of experience, her career positioning, her areas of specialties within the field. Serious organized crime and online child sex abuse, trafficking, drugs, covert operations, the upper echelon of criminals, homicides. I mean, she was the SIO chosen and elected to entice new amateur detectives. Literally think about it. This thus insinuates she is pretty high up, right? You don't put someone low on the totem pole in your recruitment video. You put someone who represents well, someone who comes across as, I want to be like her, or, I want to be a part of them. You get the point. She's pretty high up. She even stated she was and is the manager of 2 distinct separate departments, right? And that was 3 years ago. Is it thus then fair to presume she still is on this higher up managerial level, specializing in covert, organized online child crimes? I would contest so. She clearly hasn't been demoted. What I do find odd is, even if she was within that line of work then, and most likely is still now, I get it, it's a recruitment video. But legitimately, if you're a top managerial person working in a covert area, why have her publicly on record being found stating such? That's not real covert there, if you ask me. I'm just saying. I'll get more into that again later, but find it important to note. Further, did you notice the action block, or whatever you call those movie things? It titles the piece as Detectives, then lists Director, Sherlock Holmes. Producer, Columbo. I'll have a few nuggets regarding this a bit later, the Sherlock aspect, that I'm sure you'll like, and find intriguing to say the least. But it is interesting, if you really think about it, that they, the Lancashire police, chose to title such, and even share these innuendos used officially with the Facebook world. Ironic choice to use a fictional and fantasized detective as an icon, a symbol, a title to a detective recruitment piece. Why use Sherlock under the context of detectives? Well, come on, mind you, duh, he was a famous one. Right, but he's fictional. Within the guise of recruiting, insinuating what? You'll become a Sherlock? Or is Becky the Sherlock? Or is one of her covert department psychological operation happening in secret outside the eyes of the public, covert and organized, known as Sherlock. Those aren't my words, people. Those are hers. Go back and listen. Of course, I am merely hypothesizing here, and indeed not asserting any of this or that as factual. Please do not clip that out and forget to mention that. It's interesting. I mean, in reality, they couldn't and wouldn't possibly be that bold and dumb, right? To actually tease Sherlock and it end up being an actual covert mission they're actually on, or whatever the hell you want to call it. Come to think of it, in the beginning when I started on this case, I noticed a lot in the comments, oh, you're Columbo, just like Columbo, just like Columbo. First I thought, well, that's because it's the U.S. version of Sherlock, right? But then I thought about it a little bit more. Columbo wouldn't necessarily be a compliment, given he's more of a ass-backwards version of Sherlock Holmes, eh? And then I think about it further. There wasn't a single comment that suggested Sherlock. But yet I can recall 6 or 7 people saying, oh, hey, Columbo, hey, Columbo. Now, with that said, that makes me wonder if those people aren't entertaining a inside joke. I didn't get it then, but I get it now. Alternative operations in the past that they have had. Operation Silverback, wherein it was a route crime, where they were targeting graffiti on the railways. Operation Whistle, they were looking into child sex abuse over in Jersey. You get the idea. What I'm saying is Sherlock some type of operation title? I'm not saying exactly what, but it's interesting. And you'll see why a little bit later. Just wait. It's fun to ponder, I guess, is the best way to say it. With that said, retaining those comments at the forefront for just a second, let me ask you all, if we can, reflect back to January 27th, the date of the incident. It was a Friday. Officially, Senior Investigating Officer Becky Smith, the manager of 2 departments, serious and organized crime, online child abuse, trafficking, drugs, homicide, covert department outside the eye, secret, her team that specializes in digital media investigation, analyst, surveillance trained team. This Becky Smith, sometime that weekend following the Friday 27th missing episode, Becky, was designated as the SIO lead on the Nicola Bulley case. Let's pause for a second and really soak that in. Really think about what I just said. Number 1, Becky and all of her accolades, authority, considering her areas of specialty. And number 2, the facts of the Nicola Bulley case on its face. A missing 45-year-old adult mother of 2 youngsters who's a high-risk misper, who's apparently successful in her career and has a strong means of income. Side note, there was a January 10th welfare incident. Talking with the family, you would learn that there's menopause issues, or so there's said to be, struggles with alcohol. You get the point. On its face, does this case seem like it requires a senior investigating officer the caliber of Becky Smith? Really think about it. And that's no disrespect to Nicola Bulley at all. What I'm saying is on its face, why isn't Becky Smith attached to any of the other missing people around the area that seem to get one article of coverage and 3 days later everybody forgets the name? Huh? You realize the whole Shakespearean ruse, the stage play, all the interviews, all the media coverage that seems to be under the flick of the coroner's thumb? Why is Becky Smith on a case that, if authentic, involves a mom who went to walk her dog, who went missing, her phone and the harness is there, and Willow's left? Even if she falls in or an accident happens or self-fate. Even if that's the case, why does it require someone the caliber of Becky Smith? I'm curious. She was simply out on routine, having just dropped her girls off at school, with Willow proceeding to then take a morning stroll among the river wire. It was evidence she was on a Teams call, texted a friend, playdate, etc. A walk she had taken literally hundreds of times.
Done this 1,000 times. Drops the children off from school. A beloved dog, Willow. She loves it to bits, that dog. She parks the car in the school car park, walks across past St Michael's Church, through that little lane, up to the open field, and that's where she does it every day in, day out. There may be days where she misses, but if it's not her, it's Paul. And it all revolves around the point that they've dropped the children off at the school. But it's just routine. And, we're just baffled by it.
As you just heard, the point is it was routine. We all know that already. It's obvious, right? As the police say themselves, we have no reason to believe there's any third-party involvement. So it even makes it look more innocent, right? How many times does Becky reiterate this point and aspect of the case in her presser appearance on the 15th? Seriously. Sergeant Riley as well, early on. With that said, the missing mom out for a walk with her dog along the river wire. Her dad, Ernie, I remember in the beginning quoted that he remembered her being in a great mood the evening he dropped the kids off and gave her a kiss before he left. And I remember these articles here, this one 4 days after she went missing. Nicola Bulley spotted laughing and joking moments before she vanished, says friend. A missing mom was seen laughing and joking moments before she vanished while walking her dog, according to a concerned friend. Her friend, who wishes to remain anonymous, dang, isn't that a trend? Right, Grizzly? Said she spoke to a pair who may have been the last people to see Nicola before she went missing. The other one, Nicola Bulley, can be seen laughing and joking moments before she vanished by the river, says Pal. They say she was laughing and joking with them as she went by. Now, in my opinion, Emma is clearly the friend, okay? She's the one who handed out all the photos to the social media. She's the one who did 17 different interviews. It's insane how much presence she had. I mean, every single other interview, the first one with Paul was outside, but the Channel 5 interview with Paul, Emma, and the parents, that's all at Marsh Farm Hall. Emma is extremely integrated into this entire thing, right? But looking at this off the cuff, it made me think. There's a comment on here, because this is 4 days afterwards. Emma works at the school, and there is an hour and 15-minute delay in between when the phone was found on the bench and when the school was called. It's just interesting. I'm just going to throw this around. Was it that long of time because it was Emma in that field and not Nicola to give her enough time to be able to be at the school when the call comes in about the phone being missing and whatnot? Because the secretary is going to be around, and it's going to be important that Emma be back at the school at that time, right? So I'm curious. I wonder if that's why there's such a big delay. Because they say they called the vet and they did all this. It's just convenient that they called the place where Emma works, right? That's the place where Nicola was last seen, apparently, by Emma as well, at the school that morning. The laughing and joking was in the beginning because, in my opinion, the entire narrative, the entire story, the entire understanding was wide open. The walls weren't closing in on Paul and Emma at that point. At that point, even in the beginning, I said it. Someone could have abducted her, went up through own water. Things weren't really clear yet, right? So it was okay to say the laughing and joking bits, right? However, as the walls begin to narrow in and things become uncovered by myself and other YouTube creators out there, this whole narrative of laughing and joking around was washed away, shoved way to the back. To it's the river, accident or self-fate. Then you remember the narrative became, I caught this on early in closing time. Paul had this angle covered in the beginning. Remember him saying that, one thing I noticed that morning was she was really organized and she had everything done. I said this way back then, he's projecting the basis for one to infer from that. If you were interviewing him, oh man, maybe that's a little off. Because people who tend to be in that mind state are in a weird state of bliss on the day of. They get done things early, they're organized. That's what Paul's already trying to paint that picture, right? Then we get the accidental, air quotes, vulnerability slip in the presser, which I don't think it was an accident. It was intentional. Okay, never mind. I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm not going to go into that right now. But being realistic, don't buy the narrative. Why? Because you don't have to, okay? From anybody, okay? Think about the circumstances that are given to you regarding Nicola and her last movements. Okay? If she really was in a state to where she would commit self-fate or in a bad mind state, would she text a play date? Would she be amidst a team's call? Would she choose that spot? Would she do it in front of her dog? Would her family, would her friends, would Emma, because Emma just saw her, let her be alone if she was in such a state of harming herself? Now, I'm not saying that you can't conceal it. Obviously you can. But you get the point. If she was so at risk of hurting herself, I'm not saying she needed to be in treatment with, locked doors, but surely if someone's that high risk, like I said, I used to work on a psychiatric unit, some people were in locked corridors, some people had more, what do you want to call it, liberty when it comes to how far, and it's all based upon whether or not this person is going to harm themselves, the likelihood of them running. You get the point. She just closed a new real estate deal or whatever, insurance deal the night before with a big client, according to her dad, right? What is there to show that that's what happened? I mean, the evidence doesn't show that. The whole idea of this, her being, self-fate, low mental health. Yes, I know she struggled with menopause, but 51% or 55% of the population, or I don't know the exact number. Last time I checked, it was 51 or 52, is women. They all go through it. So it's almost like that's really all you could use to explain this story, Why? With that said, was Becky Smith, a 26-year vet of the force, specializing in covert, outside of the eyes of the public type of tactics, these are her words, remember, type of tactics, secret ops, designated to this case? If they didn't know any different, it is a missing mom out walking her dog. Does this call for Becky Smith that weekend to take over the case? Is it a serious organized crime? It doesn't appear so. Remember, Becky's managing a team whom is acute to digital investigation, analyst, surveillance team. She's first jokes, we have a huge team, not a huge team. Surveillance team. But yet, remember the anomaly in the beginning about Rowan Water? We got reports that it was working. Then she said it wasn't. And the crazy part is in her CCTV, or in the interview, when she talks about the caravan park in Rowan Waters, her credibility for them being honest is they were great. They were really nice. They gave us everything we asked for. As an investigator, that's not good enough. That's not good enough. That's not a valid basis to justify you have certainty there's no suspicion that direction. I hope you're following what I'm saying. Chew on this one. The actual facts of the missing person case on its face, in my opinion, don't qualify someone like Becky Smith for or to the case. She's higher up. Yet, if you consider the digital investigation, the analysis, the surveillance team aspects that she herself says that she manages, it then begins to make things quite intriguing, right? I mean, Sally Riley was the spokesperson the whole time till things got really out of hand. Well, then what do? Well, I suppose you bring in the manager or the top dog to come in and quash things. Yet she got a little ahead of herself and allowed her temper and her anger towards the situation, probably panic because it wasn't going to plan, seep out and through her words. I know, how about that, mind you? Shocked my dome still to this point. Yes, these expressions are from a recruitment video 3 years earlier. However, it is important to note she was pitching said departments to new detectives, hence foreshadowing what they and she would be in charge of and what they would be applying to, i.e., 3 years later, those detectives whom applied, and Becky herself, are still most likely operating on these bases, right? Let me be clear. I'm not insinuating anything. I am merely gathering my research and drawing logical conclusions, posing intriguing similarities. Okay? You are responsible to make up your own mind and opinion. Don't just listen to me and believe it as gospel. I'm trying to remain as honest, straight and narrow as possible. Being on the other side of the country, it makes it hard for me to get any further, right? Disclaimer there. So what am I saying? Then allow me to explain, clarify my absence as of late. After I released Title Truth, the Rothwell statement about her being seen down the middle of the river, which was a change in his narrative from him stating he wasn't going to speak about it and she was found in the tree. Using science, I believe I was able, at least to myself, make sense as to how and why she, Nicola, may have been first witnessed, found, coming down the middle. In my opinion, using the influence of Faulding and science, the Fleetwood tidal measurements, the back and forth movements, Marsh Farm Hall is awfully interesting. And I wasn't looking to pin anybody, but that lines up with Paul and Emma. The ring that was on the 3 police CCTV photos, it got removed. The manipulated CCTV dropped by Paul's friend. I felt accomplished. To inform myself, felt like I did something good. Then some time goes by and I notice and receive information that Marsh Farm Hall is and was now blurred out on Google Earth. I want to say I was stunned, but given the patterns and shenanigans in this case all over the place, to be honest, I was not one bit. Why? Because who they are. I don't know exactly who they are is. I know Paul and Emma are culpable and complicit to a certain extent. I'm now curious as to why things don't add up on the official narrative. That's what I'm digging into here, okay? Either way, regardless, they digitally smeared everything in this case, okay? They manipulated the photos. Nikki has no nose. Paul's friend drops the clear manipulated CCTV like I had said. The police erased the 3 photos of Emma shown by the ring, which I've shown in the past, off their official website. Gone. Articles are scrubbed from the internet. Interviews, the one with the pretty blonde who called out the exchange about a lead. Gone. It's rampant. I'm not making this up. Blackpool Lane was abolished, erased. Garstang Road now goes straight through. Marsh Farm Hall, blurred. Yet, they brandish the hell out of Curtis Media for his negative involvement. They have never spoke a word since Nikki Bulley was recovered. They had an identification speech wherein they let Paul reach out his aggressions towards 2 media stations and scald everybody for making them feel bad and shameful, but I saw right through that. They haven't said anything else since. The coroner spoke out, which I have a comment on that later. Silence for nearly 2 months. The funeral, everything. But yet, meanwhile, as we're uncovering things here on YouTube, they do these little digital scrubbings, as I just mentioned. And at the flip of what appears to be the coroner's request, or what they're calling it, they all get the green light. I hit Nicola Bulley enter on Google, 9 new articles on the same... If you can't see this, no media talking through all of that stuff. CCTV, nothing. All of a sudden, the same day, every single one of them gets the green light. Guys, think about it. The media is a tool they use to flood, run narrative. It's nothing new, folks. Trust me, you see it all the time in politics here in the U.S. and everything else. If I've learned anything in the last 10 years, it's media is used as a tool. You like to think we can watch a conservative, straight and narrow news channel, but those clearly don't exist anymore. In fact, in my opinion, the most authentic conversation you're going to get are through podcast and stuff like this. It's not filtered by any motive or slanted any way. And that's the problem, that these organizations, or these, whatever you want to call them, dealings, unethical, or the way they do things, are only going to continue to get brought out and shown in the real light. Because me on YouTube speaking about this, spending my time, is an uncontrollable variable. And they can't account or project for that. Right? You go back to the 2000s before YouTube existed, they can do this stuff over and over and over again, and you're never going to be able to do anything about it. Right? I mean, just here with COVID recently, the U.S. tried to brandish Joe Rogan, saying that he was taking horse dewormer. Joe Rogan fired back and proved him wrong and made Sanjay Gupta and CNN look like fools. It's not my opinion. Look into it. It's clear the media is a tool for... Yeah, I'll get into that. I'm not comparing or suggesting this is that, US to UK. What I'm demonstrating is that the media is a billboard for the highest bidder, the strongest tie to those with the most power and authority. That's what I'm saying. The fact that nobody talked the entire time, and all of a sudden this April 4th footage comes out about police in the river, you don't hear anything for a couple days, all of a sudden, bang, the Sun, the Mirror, the Gazette, Manchester Evening News, all the same day. I can't believe how brazen they are with their little buttons they're pushing. It's insane. Then it dawned on me. I still vividly remember it. This picture here popped into my head. The raft out to Morecambe Bay. I had a light bulb moment. They're pushing this narrative about them expanding the search out to the sea. They legitimately appear and are funding resources towards actually searching there. So I think to myself, this must then infer they have a reasonable basis to consider such a plausible likelihood or possibility, right? I mean, it would be a phase or step in the investigation ladder, right? Through a process of elimination, you expand out or grid search. Once you do this, then you move things out, right? You get the point. So I thought to myself, when I did it, because this is what I do, I don't always buy the narratives, I always challenge it myself in the river wire inconsistencies. I determined, per the water temperature, all of the variables, 315 meters approximately between the bottom of the bench and to where the weir is, that even if she was an Olympic record-setting time swimmer, intentionally trying to get to the weir, she wouldn't have made it. So let's say she drowned or self-fade or somebody put her in there. It doesn't matter what the scenario is. She wouldn't have crested the weir. Logically, that's not my opinion. That's what blows my mind in this case. I hadn't even and still can't get past that weir. Get past that weir in what context? The context of the narrative that the officials are still continue trying to sell. You can't get past the weir in that narrative. She wouldn't float for 5 to 8 days given the temperature and the processes of decomposition. I already went through that. Yet, day 9, Peter Falding and crew were there. Nobody saw her. She wasn't in there. That's why I keep driving at this narrative. Why do they keep trying to sell it when it doesn't make sense back on step 1 and 2? If the narrative is the truth, she would have been found, period. I'm not making up conspiracy. In fact, it is quite the opposite. It is straightforward, head-on, challenging the underpinnings of the grand mirage going on here. It's the problem. If whatever nefarious deeds are going on here now in Nicola's name are not revealed and exploited, all of this work, everything I've done, other creators have done, all of you out there have done, everything those in the public have done to help will merely all become lessons for the team or whoever's behind this, Paul, Emma, to use and learn what not to do next time going forward. If there is a forward. Seriously, think about it. Whatever that may mean. Now let me explain, because I'm probably losing some people here. If we go by the official narrative, that is, the police can do no wrong, of course they have nothing to do with this, right? Paul and Emma, in my opinion, are involved because, like I just said, that narrative in the river doesn't add up. Where she's found, given the science, puts her by Marsh Hall Farm. You look at Paul's behavior, you look at the picture of Emma on the police website posing to be Nikki with a ring on her right damn finger. She intentionally, behaviorally hides that ring. I've showed it. That's not a coincidence. Here's the problem. They just thought they had it all covered and didn't expect all of this to be uprooted and revealed, right? The problem is they didn't expect to have to make their narrative that tight. And so they're faced with making it up as they go. That's what happened. They put the cart in front of the horse and they're having to suck wind and water so they don't drown. That's what happened. That's what's happening, right? So I believe it's Paul and Emma, right? But something's off with Becky. Now, I'm not saying what that is. Something's off. And I'll show you here coming up. Something's off. Her words and the way what she's saying does not add up to legitimate, authentic, reasonable investigation given the circumstances. I mean, number one, she's way overqualified. I don't know how they are still trying to sell that. Number two, she buys and oversells all of the decoys and the normalcy of Nicola's behaviors and why he even demonstrates how it's normal for her to hold her phone out in front of her. It's normal for her. They don't find her in any CCTV. She didn't even check the Grapes pub until the 15th, 17 days after Nicola supposedly went missing. So you're telling me a senior investigating officer of 26 years of experience, honestly, authentically approaching that investigation 2 days after she went missing, is not going to check the Grapes pub for potential CCTV that's going to show Nicola Bulley until 17 damn days after the fact? Are you kidding me? Someone needs to wake up. This corruption, if you want to call it that, and I'm not saying, it's criminal corruption. It's dishonest and fraudulent crap. Now, I'm not saying that had anything to do with Nicola's passing, but they could be using it as some type of stage to move money somehow or plant movements for specific reasons to get more funding for certain areas, or you get the point. There's a million different things it could be. I can't possibly prove what it is, right? But then I had this roll through my mind immediately after it. Falding, rejecting the idea, such as even possible. That is Nicola going out to the bay. Easily, without question.
Nobody knows. This is a complete mystery, this whole thing. And normally, if somebody falls in the water, if Nicola went in here, her body would have gone straight to the bottom, it would remain there, and police divers would have found her that day, without doubt. She could be in this part of the river. If Nicola is not here, then I don't know where she's gone. She's disappeared off the face of the earth, and I'm pretty confident in saying that.
There's been a lot of speculation that if she has gone past the weir, perhaps she could have reached the sea. Whether or not that's happened yet, if she does end up reaching the sea, what are the chances of ever finding her?
Right, this is a very tidal river, so the tide comes in, the tide doesn't move, it didn't go far. If you went missing near an estuary, you could go out to sea, but things tend to move up and down with the tides. It's an awful long stretch of river with a lot of shallows. She would have been found by now in the shallows.
You literally hear Falding reject the making it out to the bay. He states, if she was here, she would have been found by now. Not able to crest the weir, even if she did, all of the shallows and the back and forth movement due to high and low tide. He even puts vanished off the face of the earth before going out to the bay. Do you realize that? Yet you have the police extending the search not just past the weir, but beyond all the nooks and turns, the shallows, out to the bay. Really? What analysis, expertise, apparently not Falding's, reasons, justifications, logic did they use? The Lancashire police to move the search out to the bay. I'll tell you, they didn't use any. They were merely selling a narrative. Oh, we're looking. She must have gone out to the bay. Not taking into account the weir, the shallows, the turns, the tide in and out, the science, the logic, Falding coming into the picture. Individuals really diving into the credibility, the stability of the surface level narrative they presented. Them going out into the bay without any feasible reason, give me some today. Well, they apparently did have some. I don't know what it could possibly be. So what I picked up and learned after going back to the beginning is a macro level structure of this case. Let's put it this way. When you think of how a police dynamic and relationship should be with a victim's family in any situation, we can all agree that there's a reasonable expectation or boundaries or lines we expect or them to behave or act, right? You know, in the beginning, if there's a lot of ridicule or a lot of hate, you might see them be a little bit defensive. Hey, they need their time to grieve. Hey, they need this and that. You understand what I'm saying? What I found in this case is it's almost like a ripple. So if the boundaries are like a straight line, right? Think of a ripple versus a straight line. In this case, there are repeated blips in the police's handling with how they speak on Paul and Emma. Okay? Becky gets very defensive, condescending towards tips, like the red van, like the other hundreds of cars out there that day. That's not even denying it. That's condescending. The fishermen, I don't find them suspicious. I don't find it odd that they were out there that day. These are legitimate tips if you really think about it, right? Yet she's hard selling facts you can't really know, prioritizing the working hypothesis publicly without any clear basis, as I just discussed. She said Garstang Road in the presser and it was a clear error, so they literally changed it officially on Google Earth. I'm not making this up. Yet they just scrub that away. They say they're referring themselves and they're under review. Yeah, but that's Snowden. It was a joke. He's got so much corruption in his past, it's not even funny. Listen to these clips here of Becky. Tell me if this is a genuine 26-year vet speaking with intention behind resolution. Facts.
That the main hypothesis I was working on at that time was that Nicola had gone in the river. This has been misconstrued in the press and said that that was what I said. I said that was my main working hypothesis at that time. Yard walked up Garstang Road and onto the river path over an iron bridge. We know she logged into a work call on Teams. Again, there has been lots of speculation about this. This was a perfectly normal call for Nicola to have. It was work related. She would never have had the microphone or camera on because it was more of an informative session. She didn't need to sign into it. She did so to enable her with her business.
We know she logged into a work call. She would never have had the microphone or the camera on. She did so to enable her with her business. See the way she talks about it? Like, she knows exactly what Nicola was doing and scorns you for considering anything else. Later, in a little bit, she does it with Willow's harness. We've had a lot of speculation about this. That was completely normal. Who's speculating about that? You know? And watch here in this next clip. She talks about key witnesses. We've been very fortunate who know Nicola. Well, it's not the lady with the red coat, because you tried to say that your dogs interacted briefly, and then she came out and said that that was rubbish. So, I don't know who it would be. It's got to be Emma, right? Check out her look after she says it.
We've been extremely fortunate from the very start of this inquiry to have a number of witnesses, key witnesses, who know Nicola. So there is no miscommunication about the identification of who is in that field. Again, a number of issues and inconsistencies have been raised in relation to Willow and her harness. It was really normal for Willow not to have her harness on. They never kept the harness on when they were in that field. The harness would be taken off Willow when they entered the field and would only be put back on when they were ready to leave the field.
When you hear her talk about Nicola and the facts of Nicola that day, you hear how possessive she is over describing what Nicola would do, what she doesn't do, what's normal. She would never have that on. She was doing that because it was for her business. It's almost like she's describing a character in a plot that she has. There's no way you could be that certain onto Nicola, you know? What the crazy ironic part is when she talks about the uncontrollable variables, which are the things you can't control in a stage narrative, she deflects every single one of them.
Again, there have been questions raised about her phone, whether that would have been in her possession when whatever happened has happened. But again, I'd just like to point her out that it's really normal for Nicola, when in a Teams call, to be holding her phone out in front of her, listening to it. And we can say from a witness that knows her that morning, that is what she was doing. So that would explain why she doesn't have her phone in her pocket, as I know a number of people have raised.
It doesn't explain shit. The only thing it explains is how possessive you are of the Nikki Bulley facts. I mean, listen how hard-selling she is on it. She's offering it up as so there's no more speculation. It was normal for Willow not to wear the harness. She did have her phone out in front of her. It's normal for her to log in. She would never have her mic off. How can you possibly know? You know, normally in a case like this, you go and you get it third party from the family, where typically she walks out, like if Paul or the family were to tell her these things, the officer would come out and say, well, it was typical for her, it was normal for her. She's not doing that. She's asserting as fact.
Rowan Water has CCTV that covers the gate that enters the field and the front of the site. That is working. The site managers have been cooperating with us.
So she claims there the cameras at Rowan Water were working. Yet I have this clipping here from very early on that says there's a camera over there broken. Then I have another one that diagrams the red light. The one's not working. The one that allows you to go on that path outside of Rowan Water. Why is Becky lying? Remember, she's the manager of 2 departments, one of which has a specialty, a huge team, she jokes, in surveillance of all things.
So moving on to Nicola's phone, I've talked to you about the discrepancies that have been flagged up with the Teams call, whether she would have had that in front of her, whether she would have had that in a pocket. And we can say with confidence that Nicola that morning, whilst logged into her Teams call, had the phone out in front of her, listening to that call.
Didn't she already say that? Why does she feel the need to reiterate this? I'll tell you. Because she's selling a story. That's why.
So in terms of persistent myths that keep being referred to in the press.
So she starts this portion by stating, in terms of persistent myths that keep being referred to in the press. And then she goes on to talk about the derelict house, the red van, the fisherman. How can you label all of these persistent myths without really checking into them? I mean, you didn't even check the Grapes pub until the day before this interview. How can you possibly call the red van and the fisherman persistent myths at this point? This is what I'm saying. She oversells what Nicola was doing, almost if like she saw her do it. That's how she knows. So much conviction. But yet she interludes with the uncontrollable variables, the public tipped in things, seeing a red van, the things they couldn't control, and she discounts them instantly. Like the hundreds of cars out there, condescending. The fishermen, I don't find it suspicious why 2 fishermen would be out there.
The red van. We're really, really grateful to members of the public for ringing into the inquiry. We wouldn't have got this far without everybody's help. But I think it's also really obvious that we are being inundated with false information, accusations and rumours, which is distracting us from our work. The red van has been reported that it was in the area on the morning of the 27th, like many other hundreds of cars that morning. We're really grateful for the witness who has told us about that, and we are continuing to make inquiries to try and track down that specific van. But from my perspective, being in possession of all the facts and information of this case, I do not believe that to be suspicious. There's also been mention of a number of fishermen that have been seen that morning, who again were described as suspicious. I myself don't find it suspicious that fishermen would be in the area of a river that morning or carrying fishing rods. But there was some suggestion that one of these males might have been looking to cover his face.
She states she's keen on tracing them, yet they are not suspicious to her. 2 fishermen, one concealing their face, likely the only individuals unidentified you have yet to speak to. Correct me if I'm wrong, they could have relevant information, something, right? At least check into it or show a little bit more urgency. As the senior investigating officer with these facts, you have to be suspicious until given substantive reason not to be, i.e., talking to them, vetting, screening, then determining. Why? Because like you said, the dog walkers who were friends of Nicola's that you've used, you're very fortunate to get all the assistance from fellow people who we don't know who they are. You still need to search the unidentified people, especially one who seems to be concealing their face, right? Van, same thing. Only likely unidentified vehicle in the area, right? I'll tell you one thing that has become clear. The Lancashire Constabulary does not like outside, or another way to word it, private-run companies that have experts to assist them. They have it all handled. Militia police, all right. Geesh. You do realize this is a theme across the board. Everyone, right? They express verbally to thank you for the tips, etc. Yet, Becky, the front and the face, states, I think it's really obvious that we have been inundated, rumors, misconstrued, like the other hundreds of vehicles out there that day. You get it. The attitude shines through. Becky, those involved in the official investigation. Aren't the police supposed to be what's in the best interest of the people, the public, the people within the case? Not what's in the best interest of them? Because that is exactly what it seems like from day one up until right here, right now, as I'm sitting and speaking with all of you. That has been the running theme. Riley warns in the beginning that, you better not speculate. Now, the coroner apparently has spoken up. Not only has the media switch been flipped, Dr. James Adeley, since I've been making this, has come out and warns against speculation. You gotta be kidding me. Dude, with all due respect, you allowing that news source to quote your words, publish them, in and of itself will bring speculation. Yet you warn. I don't know why that bothers me. Wow. I guess we're all so stupid out here. I don't know. Yes, I understand the respect for the investigation, for sure, no doubt. It's not that, it's the expression and the expectation due to his status that we heed. That's a little too much ego and authority hungry for my liking, to be honest, but whatever. Now, going back to the April 4th development again briefly, now that I raised it up, I noticed as I was preparing, like I said, Adeley did speak out, as I just referred to. Apparently up and out against those like Dr. Shepard, whom speculate as to the role and purpose of the officer's instructions in that river. Let's check it out. The coroner warns against speculation about new police river searches. A coroner investigating the death of mother of two, Nicola Bulley, has warned against speculation following the police searches of a river. A police diving team was recently seen in the water not far from the weir and downstream from a bench where police believe Miss Bulley went missing. Her body was found in the river 23 days after she went missing. Police divers were spotted in the river wire on April 4th, and a brief clip was uploaded to YouTube. Maria Sollers, prompting speculation about the activity on social media. Dr. James Adeley, HM Senior Coroner to Lancashire Police, said speculation as to the role and purposes of the officers acting on my instructions is unhelpful in the resolution of this inquest. A Lancashire police spokesman said there has been misinformed speculation over the past few days relating to the police activity in the river wire. As previously stated, police divers were acting under the instruction of HM Senior Coroner and had been asked to assess the riverbanks in the vicinity of where Nicola Bulley went missing. That's big. They had not been tasked either to perform any further searches within the river along the banks or to locate any articles. This is big, okay? This activity is to assist with the coronial process. An inquest into Miss Bulley's death is to be held on June 26th. That brings us to the present. If you have made it to this point, thank you. You are about to be rewarded. Now that I have set the table with everything to this point, allow me to attempt to try and tie this all together. It's very complex, so please bear with me. It's very interesting. Remember, we had Becky in the intro from the 2020 detective entry recruitment video, finding out she was the manager of 2 departments, 26 years with the police, 20 as a detective. Her specialties and areas of expertise include digital investigators, analyst, surveillance, organized crime. In my opinion, these areas of expertise tie her to this case, reflecting back more so than do her department on its face in the facts of the case to begin with on January 27th in that first weekend when she was elected as the SIO on the case. Like everything we see now, it makes sense why she's a part of it, but then how could they project that, right? It doesn't make sense. Considering this, there's something still off with Becky. How? Why is she doing this? The 15th presser, why? I don't think she's involved, had anything whatsoever to do with it. Let me make that clear. But something has to make sense for her behavior. And then I think I got it. She said immediately Nicola was considered a high-risk misper. Right? Then remember, Paul was the one already starting way back suggesting that she was really organized that morning, right? She was so fixated on that being the only option. Here's my thing. I think there's one of 2 ways. Either she had a reason to look no further, and I'll explain that as we go, or it was just considered that because they bought too much into what the partner was saying and the welfare check and all that. And considering the murder clearance rate in the UK being 90%, they tend to choose which are considered murders and which aren't. There tends to be a trend over there in the UK that if someone goes missing and they're drowning, they don't really look into it too much. It's not necessarily a bad thing or deliberately intentional. It's because drownings are really hard to determine other than, and I'll show that. So I got back to further evaluation, really thinking about that aspect. Remember I discussed the death investigation chart, the medical investigation of homicide, the red box line that you see in the bottom right there. And I kind of showed how the home office pathologist awaiting, the forensic maybe implied there's a criminal investigation. But here's the problem. There's no police investigation. They're adamant about that. They've been adamant about no third party, no third party, no third party. They really bought into that river. They really bought into the accident and the suicide. Now, is that because they honestly interpreted it as that and now they're humiliated to admit they were wrong? Or is there a reason why the Becky Smiths of the world stepped in, accepted that, and has personal reasons to not look much further? Looking back at the National Library of Medicine, let me explain this quickly to you. While there may be initial presumption that all water-related deaths are accidental, other possibilities must be considered in the investigation of these types of deaths, as drowning as a cause of death is a diagnosis based on the exclusion of all other potential causes. The coordinated investigative efforts of multiple agencies and disciplines are required, not only for the designation as drowning as the cause of death, but also for the death certification. In my opinion, this is what the coroner is doing. He's using people that he's going to call as witnesses at the inquest to justify and give descriptions as to her movements and how she drowned. You notice what I pointed out earlier in the article, what's so important is they specifically said they were along the banks after the weir. Now that it's been shown that she can't go over the weir, they're going to come up with some narrative that she walked out down the towpath and went in that way. That's what's happening. And why are they doing this? Because everything we've done here on YouTube has shown that just a narrative doesn't matter. The coroner, I'm not saying he's involved with Becky, I'm just saying he's doing his due diligence, studying everything himself to lead it probably to a misadventure, right? Water-related deaths are prematurely and at times subconsciously labeled as accidental drownings. While this is often the case, the presumption that a body recovered from within or near a body of water is an accidental drowning can hinder timely recognition of indicators of foul play and other important clues present in and around the death scene. Thus, in turn, may ultimately lead to false conclusions regarding cause and manner of death. This article here, Drowning and Crime. Drowning is difficult to prove beyond the accident's death stage simply because of the nature in which it happens. Proving that an unknown assailant in some way aided the death of another by drowning is difficult to establish and can usually only be so if there are physical wounds such as cuts or bruises, or indeed if any eyewitness has saw the event take place. The pathologist will attempt to reconstruct what happened by first determining what didn't happen. This may sound a little contradictory, but it is the easiest way to rule out anything other than accidental death. Quite simply, if the pathologist has been asked to autopsy a body that was found in water but does not have any physical injuries or problems with heart disease, then the most likely conclusion is that the death was caused by drowning and is then listed as death by misadventure. Drowning is the death caused by asphyxiation due to fluid blocking the airway. In the practice of forensic medicine, it is the key to determine whether the corpse was drowned or entered the water after death. At the same time, the drowning site inference and post-mortem submersion interval play an important role in investigating the identity of the deceased, narrowing the investigation scope, and solving the case. This is the problem. They don't know when she died, right? I don't think they do, because I think it's suspicious, and I think Paul and Emma are involved. With that said, if she dies way back January 27th range, 26th, 25th, by the time she's found in that water on the 23rd when she was placed there, they're not going to be able to get an accurate post-mortem submersion interval as far as how long it's been since after she's been dead. See what I'm saying? Those calculations are going to be that much harder to come by as time moves on. Like I said, remember, I do think Paul and Emma are involved to some extent in regards to the actual truth as to what actually happened to Nicola. And it wasn't that she went missing, wasn't found, then appeared. In a nutshell, this is the police's narrative, despite the logical fallacies riddled throughout. With this in mind, also considering the opening video with Becky, her specialties, digital investigators, analysts, surveillance, organized crime, let us dig a little deeper and see what this means. So I went and looked at a video of UK corruption, and Officer Neil Woods here was a former undercover police officer who investigated corruption within policing. Now, I'm not saying that's what's going on. Hear me out. He says, in general, we rely on the police as the rule of law. And he says that is them acting in our interest. When that deviates and they act on their own or someone else's interest, this is technically corruption. He says criminals need corrupt officers, someone who can alter a surveillance log. He gave as an example, which I thought was interesting. He says corrupt officers can also interfere with an investigation, make a case fail at court. Oh, that's interesting. And then this other guy comes in, and he explains corruption this way. Anything that deviates from the oath. Police the public without fear or favor. Fear. Don't look after people who are important to the exclusion of other people or those that seem so. That's fear. Favor. Bribes. Corruption. Anything that deviates from the oath. Police the public without fear or favor. So it kind of creates like a nice little idea. You know, people say corruption, they think it's the worst of the worst. No, if it's dishonest and fraudulent, it can be considered corrupt, right? And then he does mention in here, police officers sometimes commit noble cause corruption, which is to catch the bad guy. So what that means is, did they, like he uses as an example to where he busted someone for a kilo of cocaine, but he kind of talked him up to sell him that much, and this guy didn't usually sell him kilos, so he talked him up to a kilo. So what did this guy do? This guy went and cut the kilo with a bunch of other stuff to balloon the amount up to make it look like a kilo. Sold it, and he got time in jail for a kilo amount, but by purity, it wasn't even half that. He says in here he feels bad about that, but you can see he kind of do whatever you can to kind of bolster the case, right? In turn, there's a problem with officers who do this because it opens them up to manipulation and blackmail. They become puppets to organized crime. This became interesting to me because if you remember, Becky had a large drug bust, 2018 was it? And there was an Ansell and a Rothwell. And a drug bust. Isn't that interesting? And the inquest on the guy that was found by Rothwell then, held in the same coroner's court, was determined by misadventure. And the original reports were that there was 2 guys with him on a bridge. You get the point. Could that be something that maybe she acted noble cause? You know, Paul's aware of that in baiting her to say something because then he can flip on her for this. That puts Becky in a position of she's best just considering an accident or suicide, or else she's going to face humility. You get what I'm saying? And the fact that Rothwell's there, isn't that kind of interesting? Right? Could this be all designed by Paul? You know? And then, which I also found was interesting, it kind of helps me tie things together. In the United States, the murder clearance rate in 1980 was 71%. In 2020, it is down to 50%. But yet, the UK police, as this Neil guy says, have one of the best records in the world for solving murders. 90%. And then he goes on to say the remaining 10% is due to organized crime. And corruption within officers to some form, making those 10% not possible to be solved. My question is this case one of those? It seems like it, given the behavior of the officer. Now, why and what's driving that motive on her behalf, I'm not sure yet, right? So I'm pondering that, right? I'm taking you through my brain process, okay? So then, watching that Sherlock video in the beginning, I was kind of interested. I was taking a break, winding down for the night. I was like, heck, I like Sherlock Holmes. I'll check it out. And I saw that they have it for free on Crackle for anybody that wants to watch it. You're going to want to after I show you this. Episode 1, Season 1, Episode 1 with the Cumberbatch guy. Sherlock. Study in Pink. This sounds crazy, guys. This is about to blow your mind. I hope you're ready for this. The episode Study in Pink is about serial suicides. The episode begins by showing you Sherlock, and he's not really intrigued by the first 3. Nothing's really... Then all of a sudden, the 4th one comes in, and he becomes really invigorated. Why? This one's different. The 4th person had left a note, so he was curious why this one did it, looking at all intricacies. The key point is the themes in this episode, okay? So, to begin it off, the opening frame, well, not opening frame of the episode, but in the storyline comes up, and it says October 12th. That's Nicola's birthday. Then a couple minutes later, January 27th goes across the screen. That's the day she went missing. You want to know something even crazier? October 12th was an entry into someone committed suicide leaving a note. So that now I'm like, she probably did leave a note. January 27th, get this in the episode, it marks a press conference wherein police, I'm not lying, go watch it yourself, police say they are sorry to say there's no evidence to conclude it's anything but a suicide. And then all of a sudden it pans to the crowd, and a bunch of people in the crowd are saying, wrong, that's not right. The officers walk back and basically admit to each other that they're lying to the public because they don't have enough to go on yet. I'm sitting here going, holy smokes. So what's the whole deal? Sherlock gets to the person, right? And what this guy does, it is a serial killer, okay? But what this guy does, they all do die by suicide by a pill. And here's the kicker on it. This guy has a bottle of 2 pills, and he gives one to the person and says, you pick one, and I'll take the other. We'll both take them together, and then that's fate. Apparently, one has nothing that will kill you, and the other one is immediately fatal. So he's psychologically messing with these people to get them to pick the right one, right? Sherlock isn't interested in the guy, and the guy says, what's most important to you? The cause of death, or actually understanding why it appears that way? Think about it. If someone dies by taking a pill without any other context, there's no way to pathologically determine that there was any foul play because you don't know the rest of the story. Cause of death is they die by this pill. Oh, they took it. I mean, you can't really stretch and say someone shoved it down their mouth, right? But this serial killer blows Sherlock's mind and kind of proves to him, technically it's suicide, but it's not because they chose it, right? So then I'm sitting here, whatever. Just mind blown by the whole thing. I watched the episode like 5 times. And yes, this is a show, okay? And this is not reality. But October 12th, January 27th, serial suicides, it's meant to look like a suicide, but the real trick is, by the person behind the scenes the whole time, is that it actually wasn't. But he knows that through pathology, they really can't determine any further. That's what drowning is. By the exclusion of all, that's exactly what it is. You see the similarity here? The dates? What are the chances of that, right? Okay, Mind Juice, what are you saying? I don't know. I mean, it's absolutely mind-blowing, right? So I'm thinking about it, keeping everything in the forefront of my mind. Listen to how Paul, in the interview on Channel 5, expresses his emotions in response to how he's doing with things as of late. What he uses to describe his experience.
It's hard to imagine what you're going through. Can you even put it into words for us, the sort of emotions that you're feeling at the moment?
Anger, utter frustration, confusion, disbelief, surrealism. Nothing feels real.
I was going to ask you that. What feels like you're living someone else's life, or how does it feel?
It just doesn't feel real. Yeah, it's in the Truman Show. Well, I feel like I'm in the Truman Show.
Paul says, have you ever seen the Truman Show? I feel like I'm living in the Truman Show. Remember shortly after Nicola went missing, he changed his Facebook account to Sam Beckett, some character from Quantum Leap? Okay, Mind Juice, what are you saying? Hear me out. I feel I've already pegged Emma with the ring. She's in the CCTV photo, impersonating Nicola. That's incriminating enough. Marsh Farm Hall, connected to how and where Nicola was found. Now I think I'm maybe beginning to start to get Paul too. Sam Beckett from Quantum Leap, and him even offering up, have you seen Truman Show? This shows Paul Ansell has a special affiliation with TV shows, movies, correlating them to and with his life. I get it. We all do it. With music, with movies, with TV shows, to help relate and help people connect and understand. But to me, in this case, given the irony of the silver lining of the Sherlock episode and what it means, this could show the beginning of premeditation. Not completely, but just listen. Becky releases that video, recruitment video, 2020. My question is, how was Paul and Nikki's lives then? It doesn't necessarily have to be that Paul witnessed that video then, but my idea is that he got that Sherlock innuendo somehow as like a form of mockery or back at you type of thing. He does. I mean, my perspective, nobody's ever going to figure this out. It's his joke. It's his inside thing until I came along. But at that point, you know, is it a mockery, a jab, a smirk at Becky? Same with Rothwell, finding another body. Ansell, Rothwell, and Becky Smith are all ties here. Drugs, organized crime, now this case, digital investigation like crazy, surveillance. With that said, I don't think Becky would be or is deliberately covering up for him if he were to have taken her life, or further that she is in on some psychological operation. There's a real death here, and I think it moves beyond the nuances of running some scheme. She's coming across more like she's overselling it because it has to be an accident or a suicide, right? The silver lining in the Study in Pink Sherlock Holmes episode is the idea that there was perceived to be these suicides were in fact decisions made by those taking the pill under duress with no choice. But the autopsy does not show that part. Only Sherlock figured that out. The idea, drowning is well known difficult to determine, especially with elapsed time after death. In between when she was found, the longer she was in the water. She wasn't in the river at first, on purpose, to let that time, the decomposition processes, to whisk away any evidence that there was. Right? By the time she is found, any bruising, anything like that, the fact that she might have been held under, would be long gone. Undetermined misadventure, like Michael Brooks. The problem is, Paul didn't engineer the weir, the high and low tide, the distance this case would catch, the power Nicola's soul would have on the rest of the world, seeking the truth. We know that Nicola was in a good mood. She was setting up a play date, or so she says. I'm only taking the father's account, right? But you have Paul hinting on early on in the fact, oh yeah, she was getting up early. He's already setting the stage. The January 10th incident was likely staged as well. Then you have the Lancashire police and Becky Smith drop on the 15th presser. Remember, on the 15th presser, that was after the Weir was denounced, after I came out with that, really driving in on Emma, beginning to figure things out. She comes out in this interview, makes an appearance, and drops the vulnerabilities. They claim it was an accident, but if you watch through it authentically, it wasn't. She said it twice, and it wasn't a slip, right? I think she did this on purpose because they're selling it. I mean, that's the only way. They want you to really get the raw details, like, oh, how would they release that? Gosh, that's terrible. You know, oh, that's terrible. They were overselling it without saying it. The vulnerabilities, wanting everyone to finally take it and move on. That's what Becky wants. Why did she lie about all of the fortunes and all the witnesses? Who are they? Why did she lie about the CCTV and Rowan Waters not working? Again, I said, overselling the decoys, the normalcy of Nicola's behavior, yet casting spells on all of the uncontrollable variables. Absolutely resistant to the things that logically would be of interest in a normal investigation. Everyone below Becky is a puppet. No offense, Peter, but when he says, oh yeah, something about vulnerabilities, it's clear he had no idea she was even going to say that. Right? Snowden. The police work was great. The narrative got out of control. I'm not even going to go into him. The constable. The night of the vulnerability slipping, he's taking a smiling picture with Snowden as if they didn't just make a huge mistake, because they did. Now, here's the real thing. What would it take for Becky to do that intentionally, knowing that she would face backlash for revealing personal information? Why? What did she say that, oh, I have to sacrifice that? What was the alternative? There was no appropriate investigation throughout that we know of. Hence, the coroner will be left just like those in Study in Pink, because they understand the intentional manipulation behind the death, set up to look like the accident and self-fate, will be undetermined. They even kept her away for some time, then placing her in. Not very smart on where and how they did it. In my opinion, it was to smack the police right in the face. Paul supports Faulding and the police department both. I've showed this before. But yet, the police department, as I already talked about in this episode, and Peter Faulding have absolutely convicting philosophies. You have the police out searching Morecambe Bay, and you have Faulding saying there's a higher likelihood that she could vanish into thin air. Paul likes them both. I think the police have done great. You know, Faulding, he rode the coattail on the red carpet of Faulding to say, yeah, we don't think she's in the river, to get the police to shift focus away from the river. And as soon as they did, Nicola was placed in there. All of us are going to be like, well, Becky's like, it was a slap back at him. What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? And then you have Jason Rothwell walking on a Sunday stroll, happens to find the body, who happens to also be linked to Ansell and Becky Smith back to the drug charge. That's where this triangle of those three people is weird, right? Something Paul has over Becky will come out, hopefully. She and the Lancashire police cannot afford this blackmail, so they have no choice. They're running as an accident, suicide, can't really be determined, closed case. That's why they haven't covered anything, right? Paul's friend drops the manipulated CCTV footage. Nothing. In my opinion, that could have been done by Becky. Why? To get people to dig into things and start talking about crap that doesn't matter and let people run. But I know I've been onto crap because I've gotten actions. CCTV comes out by Grizzly, which is still fishy. Nothing. Nicola's funeral, nothing. Police remove the 3 photos of Emma off their website. Don't say anything. Changing official road from Blackpool to Garstang. Marsh Farm Hall blurred out. Nothing. It's all digital sleuthery like crazy. Leading you from... So that's why you know you're hitting on it. Right? It's almost like Becky's hostage to the situation. Right? What is the alternative? That's what makes me think that Paul's got something on her that will uproot, like maybe she was involved in noble corruption, and if she turns and comes on Paul, he's going to uproot all these dealings, and that'll destroy her career. That'd be a tough spot to be in, if you think about it. Yeah, you need to do the right thing, but... And I just think the whole Sherlock thing is his masterful genius plan over time that he concocted to somehow get back at the police and her, knowing that you could never get away with that in the U.S., by the way. The FBI would have that stuff cracked right off the bat. But over there, you have the misogyny problems. I mean, I keep thinking of the woman who just suggested that women take a bus home. I mean, that's exactly the same philosophy. Look the other way. How do you get away with murder? Drowning. Make sure you don't leave him in there too early, but you can get away with it. And Paul's almost... I feel like I'm living in the Truman Show. And then he's in an episode of Sherlock. And then after Nicola goes missing, he's Sam Beckett. Like, you can't make this stuff up. You can't make this stuff up. Now, some people are going to think I'm all conspiratorial, blah, blah. Well, then you haven't watched all my stuff, all right? Nicola deserves better. I personally embrace a philosophical, psychological outlook on life. That is, a devotion towards the fundamental nature of knowledge, reality, etc., entwined with recognition as to how humans and individuals are often driven by self-interest, at least some of the time. Together, if used subjectively, knowledge and reality in these processes will shred any manipulation or bias, etc., made by top police executives or media, whatever you want to call it. Simply put, I'm not a sheep. I always use my mind independently, separate and apart from any and all influence, screening each and everything impressed, over and over. Everyone should, especially in today's world. The thing is, the truth doesn't require too much correction and explanation, guiding to be understood. The truth shouldn't and doesn't have to be sold. Now, things presented to be the truth that are not, such as intentional narrative spinning, requires constant and persistent cognitive control, execution, to maintain its validity. It doesn't take much to distinguish between the two if you know what you're looking for. There's an awful lot of selling in this case. If you don't believe the narrative, it is met with condescending, mockery, entitlement, power, strong-arming, silence. Is it catching on? The media is a snake. Always, any source, always taking it with a grain of salt myself. In this case, there are a few media sources that are clearly on the inside. One of them literally set up Falding on TV with the style of their questioning and baiting him right into it. Now, Emma does have strong ties to the BBC. Interesting, Dr. Shepard, like I said earlier, breach of his oath and profession, and Adeley came out and basically shot that down too. My question is who was he put up to? Who put him up to come out and say something? Someone did. He didn't wake up all willy-nilly and come out and say it. Someone put him up to it. Think about it. The media flip switched. Here comes Dr. Shepard. Oh, they're looking for a missing artifact. That's intentional and by design by somebody. Right? Is it Paul, Emma? Could be. Constant misdirection, just like I told you, everything else. Right? Paul, Becky wanting to get lost in the rabbit holes. April 4th, they want you to speculate. In all the wrong ways. Anything aside from the truth is good for those involved. I would like to say that I trust Dr. Adeley. However, considering if it is drowning, given how long it was after she died that they found her, considering intentional deception on cause of death, which I think Paul did, lack of investigation appropriately being done, just like the other guy said, Neil, studying corrupt policing, the 10% of murders that aren't solved are due to corrupt policing and investigation. That's exactly what's going on here. The investigation isn't allowed to be effective. There's every reason to want to look at those fishermen. Becky wasn't suspicious. The red van, probably one of the only vehicles there, it wasn't suspicious to her. But yet, it was normal. It was normal. Willow always wore the harness. You can't sell stuff like that. That's not a normal investigator, right? I still can't possibly... Oh, man. All in all, Dr. Adeley won't be able to rule anything but misadventure. Truly. The one thing with him that has always stuck with me was after the inquest hearing, he made the comment, the family did not attend for reasons I can quite understand. I still, to this point, cannot possibly think of a rational reason why he would say this. Aside from diffusing the Paul blame that would come instantly if he did not, my question is, why is the HMO coroner commenting on victim-family relations from his offering? Not asked. To me, it is much like Becky, to diffuse the onslaught against Paul. Why is this happening? Him suggesting this to the media to diffuse people from looking further into it, he's kind of just saying, just in case you're wondering, don't worry about it because this is the case. That's outside the scope of his practice as well. It's not obvious on its face, but if you think about it, he said that to diffuse people questioning why the family wasn't there. Maybe I'm just a family guy, but I can't think of a single reason why at least Paul wouldn't be there. It's his partner and mom of his 2 daughters. Nothing. What does Paul Ansell have on you that you cannot overcome, Becky? I'm bringing justice for Nicola. It's been great, everyone. Until next time, Mind Juice out.